Man doth not live by bread only, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of the Lord doth man live. Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth.
And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit, and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years, and cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that he must be loosed a little season. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus, and for the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands. And they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. But the rest of the dead lived not again until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy is he that hath part in the first resurrection. On such the second death hath no power, but they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. And they went up on the breadth of the earth, and compassed the camp of the saints about, and the beloved city. And fire came down from God out of heaven, and devoured them. And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are.
All right. Hello, family. Can you guys hear me? Great to be back. Hope I've unmuted myself this time. There have been times where I've started and I've literally just been on mute. So if you guys can hear me, let me know, and we will go ahead and get started with this controversial, as always, topic, talking about the little season. It's great to see some of you guys here. I saw Mike and Nancy. Got to do a study with them earlier. A blessing to see you guys again. Audio is decent. That's it. Okay. We'll go with decent. State-of-the-art technology here. We'll go with decent. All right. Well, for those of you who have never looked into this topic, it's about to get really deep. We're going to be talking about the little season. And when I bring this topic up to people, I get all sorts of different reactions. Some people, they just look at me like, what are you talking about? What's the little season? But one of the common themes I'm noticing when we talk about where we're at in time is people are saying that we're in the little season right now, that right now the Millennial Reign has already happened and we're in the little season. And so I've been researching this topic for a few years, and only recently have I really dug deep into it because I've seen that trend of people saying that this is the case. And so this takes me back to prophecy and looking at where we are in time, even though we'd already done that and looked at where we are in time, going back and seeing if that's possible from a deceiver standpoint, from this enemy deceiving us. Could we really be in the little season? And so I want to share my studies. This isn't something where I'm a teacher and I'm just trying to pour out all my wisdom. This is something I'm studying, and I would like to have you guys be a part of that so that we can study this together. We can look at the prophecy, and you can correct me when I'm wrong, share things with me. If there's a time where I'm wrong and I'm quoting a Bible verse and, maybe it's labeled wrong or something because I've copied and pasted it wrong. If I'm speaking wrong, correct me. You guys are good about that. I think you did that with my Out of Egypt video where I said Abraham told a lie. And in reality, he didn't lie. He was just withholding some information. And so a little bit of dishonesty, but I need to speak correctly, especially when talking about Abraham. And so you guys corrected me. I took that little segment out of the video. So I appreciate that. This is going to be like a study session where we're looking at these things. We're setting up the timelines. If you're like me, I'm visual. And so when I do these things, I have to have visuals to show me even just where I am in time. Okay. Without the visuals, I get lost in the mix. And so I like to lay everything out in a way that makes sense to me. And hopefully it makes sense to you guys, because this topic is extremely important to be understanding. It has to do with the gospel of the kingdom. What Yeshua said, thy kingdom come, when we're praying and going out and preaching the gospel of the kingdom. So this topic is extremely important. And it's one of those that I'm glad I'm looking into it, because it's helped me go back to all the prophets and look at the patterns of what the Father was telling them. Because that's one thing Peter said. He said, be mindful of what the prophets are saying and understand that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as a day. And so mirroring what we see with the 7 days with creation, or I guess the 6 days of creation and a day of rest. And so the little season, before I dive deep into this, I'll let our intro play through, and it sort of discussed it a little bit, but I want to talk about what it is before we dive into an in-depth lesson, due to the fact that we're all on different levels when it comes to our understanding of what these things are. And so if you're watching this and you don't know what the little season is, it's okay. We're going to go back over and look at that. I've put up a bunch of comments from people, as people have commented and said we're in this little season, I started putting them up. So if I have your comments in my slides, I'm not picking on you. It's just looking at the pattern of things that people were saying in the comments, because I read these things to see where you guys are at, what you're looking into, and what your understandings are, as well as the wisdom you share. And so I see a lot of people saying that this 1,000-year reign, it's definitely already happened. And we're basically preparing to go and battle the holy city, the kingdom, that millennial kingdom. And so lots of comments, I've compiled them. I'm not going to go through them, but just to show you that that's the theme that we are seeing. And this is going to take us to Revelation, where it paints a real clear picture of what that little season is, because you have these things being told to John. And so it says here, this is Revelation chapter 20. It says, and he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. And so there's that millennial, when we're talking about the millennial reign, there's that 1,000-year period. And during that time, the Satan, or the evil one, is bound. And it says, and they cast him into the bottomless pit and shut him up and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that, he must be loosed a little season. So that's the little season, that time period where the enemy is let loose. Okay. It doesn't give specifics on to how long that is. We've just had a 1,000-year period. And so something my dad told me I thought was interesting. He said, you think about seasons, there's 4 in a year. If this is following a 1,000-year period, I would think the maximum for a little season could be, 250 years or so. I don't know how long the little season is going to be. I do have a possible answer in Jubilees, but again, it's just my theories based on the things that I'm seeing. And so that's the little season, or the start of it, when he's let loose. But it goes on in chapter 20 to tell us, I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus and for the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands, and they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. And so this 1,000-year reign period, this coincides with the enemy being bound. And so I'll show you a visual of that in just a second. But it says, the rest of the dead lived not again until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. I know a lot of people are kind of expecting something to happen before the first resurrection, but it says it's the first one here. So in my opinion, this is the first one. There's no pre-first resurrection. There's the first resurrection, and that's what we're awaiting. But it says, this is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy is he that hath part in the first resurrection. On such the second death hath no power, but they shall be priests of Yah and of Christ, and shall reign with him, talking about Christ, 1,000 years. And so there's a reign going on. You're going to be priest and reigning with the beloved Son for 1,000 years. Sounds awesome to me. And when I talk about that, people are like, hey, you need to study. We're beyond that. We're in the little season. And so that's why I want to share what I'm seeing based on prophecy, based on, some historic events. And this topic is actually trending. I've seen videos with millions of views claiming that we're in the little season, and here's some evidence, and calendars have been changed based on, look at tombstones from the 1700s and all of that. So we're going to look at some of those things, but a lot of what we're going to look at is prophecy, what the prophecies say, what the prophets of the Most High were telling us. And actually, I left one out. Revelation chapter 20, verse 7. I'm going to read this one real quick because this is the fate. This is what happens towards the end of the little season. It says, when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison and shall go out to deceive the nations, deceiving nations this time. That's important to understand, because before the millennial reign, it's unclean spirits like frogs deceiving the kings of the earth. There's no more kings during the millennial reign, so now they're deceiving the nations. Okay, and so it says, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth. So if you have a circle, you can divide it into four quarters. Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. And they went up on the breadth of the earth, encompassed the camp of the saints in the beloved city. So there's a millennial kingdom already there. The entire purpose of this little season is to get people to attack the camp of the saints. The ones that the people, they already know it's there. And you'll see that in prophecy. They know it's there. There's things they have to do to avoid plagues and droughts, famines, things like that. Or mostly the droughts. I want to say droughts. I don't want to say plagues. But definitely having rain. There's something you would have to do every year. And so that's Revelation, talking about the little season. The goal of this little season being to attack. And what happens when they attack? Fire falls down from above, out of heaven, and kills them. It wipes them out. So that's their fate. And looking back through history, wondering how is it that they're going to convince people to do that? I don't know. Some of the comments I see say that the ones that say we're in the little season say they're going to convince us that there's aliens like at the North Pole, and that we're trying to attack these aliens. And I find it not hard to believe. I mean, once you become a truther, anything's almost easier to believe than what they put in the news. But like that the Father would just wipe out people who are thinking they're going to attack aliens. I feel like these people will be dead set in their mind and making a conscious decision. We're going to go after this camp of the saints, the one where they're priest and reigning with the Messiah. And so with the timeline that I believe we're on, this is what it looks like. We've gone over this with our generations video, generations of the heavens and the earth, where you have that seventh millennial day, which we're actually approaching pretty soon. I don't want to say how soon. I've got my theories on that. But there's a lot of people that say it's 2030. I don't want to put a date out there. I think it's really soon. And if I was to say 2030 or 2040 and it's tomorrow, how bad would that be? Making people be like, all right, you can relax for another several years. No, I want you guys to be ready. I'm not going to be, this is not about dates. I mean, it is about dates, but it's not about picking an exact, minute, hour type of deal. And so we're right over here, somewhere near that seventh millennial day, in my opinion. But when you look at the prophecies that go along with this, it matches up with Hosea, where he says in the third day, he's going to raise us up. And when you look at the timeline with the new third day, because remember, our calendars, the way we kept time when Yeshua came, it is now AD, Anno Domini, the year of the Lord, which they changed it to CE in my lifetime. It used to be AD, which is easier. Now it's just Common Era, CE instead of Anno Domini. But when you look at that, and we've gone over this before, if you want to see where we're coming from, watch our Generations of the Heavens and the Earth video. It'll break it down. But the prophecy in Hosea, which have us resurrecting right here in that seventh millennial day, which would be the new third day if you're looking at those 1,000-year periods. So kind of confusing if I'm not covering it. It takes about an hour and a half to break that down. But when you look at the little season calendar, I'm going to full screen this. And let me see, put this on solo layout so you guys can see it. Right there. There you go. The claim is that the 1,000-year reign started around 70 AD. And correct me if I'm wrong. You guys can do that in the comments if I'm wrong. But a common theme that I see is that it started somewhere around 70 AD, that resurrection, the first resurrection, and that they've added 1,000 years to our calendars. And so I'm visual. I have to lay this out. So if they've added 1,000 years, we're not in the year 2024. According to this theory, we're in the year 1024. And so I've laid it out on this timeline so you can see it. It would have us right there with the millennial reign happening from 70 AD to 1070. And like I'm seeing, the millennial reign would still be going on with that timeline. So I don't know what I'm missing there. Maybe there's something that is missing with the added dates that they have in their theory, but I haven't seen it, which would mean that we're not actually in the little season and that it's just the millennial reign going on right now. And that's using the timeline that I've seen from what comments people have said, videos I've watched on this topic. And so I could be wrong, but that's what I believe they're saying, that they've added 1,000 years and that 70 AD was when the millennial reign started. And so that would have been when the enemy's bound, and he would still be bound for a good while. But that's what I'm seeing. And here's a screenshot from one of their videos that I took where they still have the same basic core timeline with a 1,000-year reign, Battle of Gog and Magog, the new heaven and earth, very similar to what I see, but only now we're at the end. And so essentially they believe we are on the blue arrow on the right. I believe we're right there before the millennial reign on the left. And so that's the little season. That's the timelines. That's what we're going to be looking into and investigating through prophecies and looking at a couple of the common verses that seem to indicate that the things they were saying were going to happen to those people right then and there while they were still alive. And so there's some good verses. I'm not going to discredit anybody who's bought into this. I was starting to look at it and get really confused early on before I started looking into prophecy. And it was really hard for me to not see some of the things they were saying, because I'm like, wow, that makes sense. But then I go back and look at prophecy and I'm like, wait, this doesn't make sense. And so it takes a lot of studying the prophecy to understand where we are, what's about to happen, and sort of the theme of the entire word, what we're supposed to be doing, how we're supposed to live, and all of that. And so that's their timeline. Again, I believe we're right before the millennial reign and the little season. People believe that we're in the little season after the millennial reign. And so that's why it's important to look at prophecy, I believe. And so doing so, let's look at some of the prophecy that show us what's going to happen during the millennial reign. And so during that time period, it says here, this is in Isaiah chapter 2. It says, and it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains and shall be exalted above the hills. And all nations shall flow unto it. And many people shall go and say, come ye and let us go to the mountain of Yahuwah, to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways. Reminds me of that 10-week prophecy in Enoch, where during that time period, people are on a path for righteousness. And it says, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem, and he shall judge among the nations and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares. So essentially, weapons of war will be turned into farming equipment. People are not going to be going to war. They're going to have farming equipment now. They're going to be tilling the soil, planting seeds. And it says, in their spears, they're going to also change those into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn way of war anymore. O house of Jacob, come ye and let us walk in the light of the Lord. And so there's prophecy about what it's going to be like. And then you have here, they shall not hurt, nor shall they this is further on in Isaiah, at all be able to destroy anyone on my holy mountain. For the whole is filled with the knowledge of Yahuwah, as much water covers the seas. And in that day, there shall be a root of Jesse, and he that shall arise to rule over the Gentiles, in him shall the Gentiles trust, and his rest shall be glorious. Sounds a lot like the Sabbath, with this being that 7th millennial day. That would make sense. And it shall be in that day the Lord shall again show his hand to be zealous for the remnant that is left of the people, which shall be left by the Assyrians, and from Egypt, and from the country of Babylon, and from Ethiopia, and from the Elamites, and from the rising of the sun, and out of Arabia. And it shall lift up a standard for the nations, and he shall gather the lost ones of Israel, and he shall gather the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. And so you see a lot of peace during that time. There's no more war. Nobody's fighting against his people. And so when I pull up the things that happened right after Yeshua walked this earth, after the resurrection, you have Pentecost, you have the 4 Gospels being produced, you have Paul's letters going out, you have all these things. And if it was around 70 AD that this resurrection happened, you would have 1,000 years that look like what we just heard. No more deceptions. The enemy is bound. But what I see happening, and again, they could lie about history, but there's a lot of witnesses that talk about these things that happened where Christianity was illegal. Preaching that gospel of the kingdom, you were being put to death. And it wasn't until they changed the gospel of the kingdom with their Roman creeds and started altering the image of the Messiah, which happened allegedly during the Millennial Reign. If that's when the Millennial Reign happened, you would have these creeds being made. They go against what the Messiah said about himself, who he was, who his father was. So they would be changing that image during the Millennial Reign. I don't think we would need creeds during the Millennial Reign. I don't think there's going to be any creeds being written. I don't think they're going to be killing believers because prophecy says that's not going to happen. And then when you even look to the 1100s, all the way to the 1800s, a long span of time, you have the Inquisitions, where they are, again, killing us heretics, people like me, saying the things I'm saying right now. I would be prime target, going against their creeds. If you do that, yep, you're going to be set up there on the platform with those people. And so these things would have had to have happened, from what I can perceive, during the Millennial Reign if we are currently in the little season. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the mental image I'm getting when they say that 1,000 years has been added and that we're in the little season, is that 1,000-year period after 70 AD was the Millennial Reign. And so in my humble opinion, based on what I've seen, I don't think that the events you see on this timeline would have taken place. You even had the Big Bang Theory coming about, the heliocentric model deception coming about. Most High, down here on the earth with his beloved son reigning, I don't think they would let that fly. And then you look through history, you see all sorts of conquering happen throughout the different centuries, 2nd century, 3rd century, 4th century, all these things, territories being acquired, battle after battle, nation rising against nation, like Yeshua talked about, kingdom against kingdom, Rome not really dying out, just sort of passing on its traditions. And so, in my opinion, just based on that prophecy alone right there of what it's going to be like, I don't think that we've came out of that Millennial Reign period. And so that's prophecy. Here's some artifacts that I've seen, and I was showing this to my wife a few weeks ago, and she was saying, let me look into that with you, because she likes researching with me, and she figures a lot of this stuff out too. And one of the things people were sending me were these images of tombstones and things that have dates on them, and they would say, look, instead of a 1734, it was I-734, or instead of 1769, it was J-769. And they just turned that J into a 1. They turned that I into a 1. And I thought, wow, that would be pretty easy to do. It's kind of like a daylight savings time, but everybody sets their calendars ahead 1,000 years. They just change J's into 1s. sounds logical. But my wife said, have they ever thought to look at tombstones and things where there's 1s at other parts of those dates, like say 1811, something like that, where you can find some that actually do have 1s. But there are some, and look at this is fascinating, that have a J in front of their dates. So 1722 does look like J722. And I thought, wow, pretty devastating. But when you look at the other one where like it's the 16th day, this person was only 6 months and 16 days old. Very sad. They lost a young child. But the one in front of the 6 for the 16 that I have outlined looks like a J as well. Almost like that's a type of font they were using when they were carving these things up. And then, we got our Constitution, 1776. It would have to have a J like that, but it doesn't. It's actually just 1776. And then there's some more right here. This is 1791 or J79J. If you look at, if you were to turn those into J's. And I thought, well, maybe that was 79, kind of how we do our dates, like, hey, it's 92 instead of saying it's 1992. But those J's, if you look the top left corner of my screen, I've made it a little bit bigger. The 14th of July, their one also looks like a J. And so that narrative being pushed out about the J's being turned into ones and the I's being turned into ones, I believe that's pretty easy to disprove just looking at any set of, images of somebody's cemetery where they have these old stones. And we have some of those around here. We have some from the 1800s and, Civil War day or Civil War era grave sites. So you can see numbers where they might have kind of looked like this. You can kind of go around, look at your old graveyards around where you live and see that's a pattern. But look for ones that have ones at other parts or in other areas of the tombstones. And so pretty easy to clear that one up. And that's confused a lot of people. I've seen videos go mega viral where they're showing that and people get confused and they think, oh, wow, there is 1,000 years added. And so don't let that one trip you up. That's one that, again, is tripping a lot of people up. And I think it's just a weird way they write their numbers, almost like they're writing numbers in cursive, like they're just kind of adding a little swoop to the numbers there, not changing and adding 1,000 years. And so that brings us now to the location. I think I mentioned it earlier. The claim is that it's at the North Pole. And this is a valid claim based on a verse they sent me in Jubilees. If you take it as being the center of the world when it comes to Mount Zion. And so I'm going to look at that. It says here, and this is, I think this is Jubilees chapter 8. And it says, they came forth on the writings as Shem's lot, the middle of the earth. And so Shem's lot, this is for anybody who hasn't read Jubilees, right after they're coming off of the ark or after they've came off the ark and the flood's over, Noah's giving land to his children, specific sets of land for specific children, dividing it up. You know how children are. He knew they would fight if he was like, hey, just go out and find your own place. What everybody has is better. And eventually what happens after he says, this is your land, Shem, Ham, this is your land, and Japheth, we're reading about that now. They're not happy. The one of them was like, nah, I think I'm going to go over here and dwell in Egypt. And they're like, that's not your land. And he's like, I don't care. And that ends up causing those curses to fall upon them because things that really kind of set in motion the events of the people inheriting the promised land. They're taking back land that was stolen from them, essentially way back with Noah's children going out and setting up their cities. And so Shem's lot, it says the middle of the earth. Well, go back to Genesis. We're biblical earth creationists. What did the Most High say that earth was? It was dry land. And so Shem's lot is not in the middle of the world. It's in the middle of the dry land. And so this area that they're at, and if you look on the map, I didn't plug my mic. If you look at the middle of the map, the North Pole, that's the middle of the world. And when you look above that, you see the giant chunk of land, and I'll pull it up on a bigger map here in just a minute. The center of the dry land would be where they're talking about, not the actual center of the world or the North Pole. And it says, so Shem's lot, the middle of the earth, which he should take as an inheritance for himself and for his sons, for the generations of eternity, for the middle of the mountain range of Rapha in the mouth of the water from the river Tina, and his portion goes towards the west. Through the midst of this river it extends till it reaches the water of the abysses, and out of which this river goes forth and pours its waters into the sea, Miat I'm guessing that's how you say it, or meet with an apostrophe. And this river flows into the great sea, and all that is towards the north is Japheth's, and all that is toward the south belongs to Shem. So they're divvying out land. And so again, middle of the earth is the middle of the land, the middle of the dry land. The floodwaters have already receded, so there's now dry land again. And so right here, this is a common verse right here. I'm going to just read the bottom part. I'm not going to read all of it. The highlighted part, and it says, "And Mount Zion, the center of the navel of the earth. These three were created holy places." So it talked about Mount Zion, Garden of Eden, and then here you have Mount Zion, of course, the center of the navel of the earth. And so right there, that verse does sound like the North Pole, but again, look at where I put the red dot on the map on the far bottom right. The center of the earth, the center of the dry land where they were dispersing out right there after the floodwaters receded. Okay. So this is my opinion. I could be wrong. That's the way I see it based on biblical definitions of what the word earth means. Earth and world are two different things. The earth can quake, it can shake, it can do all these different things, but the world is immovable. So all of creation. I think that's important to understand. There's a difference between the world and the earth. The world is immovable. The earth can tremble, quake, move, have different elevation changes and all of that. So fascinating stuff. And now let's look to precursors. This is a big one. This is what I want you guys to see. Precursors of the return. So this is pre-millennial reign. Things that happen before the millennial reign and the little season. So 1,000 years before the little season even starts. Let's take a look. I've got visuals. Again, you've got the abomination of desolation, the sun being darkened, stars falling, tribulations, mark of the beast, false Christ, gospel of the kingdom preached in all the world. A lot of little things right here. And the most important things to look at is I get a lot of these from the words of the beloved Son, and what he says is important. And so it's quoted right here. You guys can go back and read these. These are all from Matthew 24. I will read the bullet point versions for the sake of time. And so just understand that that's where I'm getting these from. I'm getting them from Yeshua's words, the things that he said would happen. Okay, so this is according to him. He says, "There shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders. This gospel, and also this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world. The abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet shall stand in the holy place. Iniquity," or lawlessness, when you see that word iniquity, it's essentially utter disregard for the Father's law, "shall abound, and the love of many shall wax cold." We're seeing that now. "After the tribulation of those days," it says, okay, so there's a tribulation, and then the end is going to happen. "The sun will be darkened. The moon shall not give her light." And this is in prophecy too. This is not just Yeshua speaking something that's new. This is something that's been prophesied. "Stars shall fall from heaven, and he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other." So a gathering unlike anything we've ever seen, ever, is going to happen. Those stars are going to fall. And so we still have stars in the sky, as far as I can tell. I don't know what the claim is about those, but it says, according to prophecy now, we're going to look at prophecy. This is where it's quite the journey. You see there again, the sun and moon shall be darkened. Another witness. Not that Yeshua is not enough of a witness, but there's more. "And the stars shall fall, withdraw their shining. The Lord also shall roar out of Zion and utter his voice from Jerusalem. And the heavens and the earth shall shake." Let's get the earth shaking, the heavens shaking. "It'll be a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness." According to Zephaniah, "He shall destroy the sinners thereof out of it," and Isaiah. "And then people from every nation required to go to the kingdom and celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles and worship Yahuwah so that they can receive rain." This is going to be happening during the millennial reign. That's why I don't think they're going to be creating creeds and all of the inquisitions and wars going on. There's not going to be war. We've already talked about that. Yahuwah shall be king over all the earth. This is in Zechariah. And in that day shall there be one Yah, and his name one. That's definitely not happening right now. People don't even know his name. They don't even know that he and his son both, have a name. I will gather you from the four winds of heaven, and there shall be no more utter destruction, but Jerusalem shall be safely inhabited. That's in Zechariah. Then will I return the people to a pure language. This is a big one. Pure language. Like at creation, before the Tower of Babel, there was a pure language, that they may call upon the name of Yahuwah. Language will be restored. That's a big thing during the Millennial Reign. And so, language is being restored. That hasn't happened. That's why we have apps like the one called Babel, where you go on to learn different languages. An app called Babel, believe it or not. And so, that's pretty cool. Can't wait till that happens. All other kingdoms will end. I don't think that's happened. Everyone shall worship Yahuwah from their location. Some people are. Worldwide resurrection and gathering of the elect. The elect will meet Yahuwah and Yeshua in the air. 2 witnesses will be killed. That's Revelation. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, the beast, whose names are not written in the book of life. So people are going to be taking that mark, worshiping the beast. And so that's another one. Euphrates drying up. Hasn't happened yet. Merchants of the earth deceive the world with pharmakia. A lot of people, that's Revelation 18. A lot of people think that's happening. Of course, we just had that event happen that I guess I don't want to mention on here out of trying not to get flagged. You just bring up certain words, you get flagged. But you guys know what I'm talking about. Happened around 2019, 2020. And then locations. This is another big one. They shall dwell in their land, which I have given to my servant Jacob, where their fathers dwelt, and they shall dwell upon it. And David, my servant, prince forever, and I will make with them a covenant of peace. There's that peace, that 1,000-year period. It shall be an everlasting covenant with them, and I will establish my sanctuary in the midst of them forever. So the little season, remember, the goal was to attack this place. And my tabernacle shall be among them. And this crafty enemy is going to try to get them to attack that. That's the entire goal of the little season. And my tabernacle shall be among them, and I will be to them a God, and they shall be my people, and the nations shall know that I am the Lord, that sanctifies them when my sanctuary is in the midst of them forever. That's Ezekiel. We're all over the place, but this is a study. Again, I'm just compiling prophecies about what it's going to be like. Here's another one that I think is significant as well in Zechariah 14. Yahuwah's feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east. And the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof toward the east and toward the west. And there shall be a very great valley, and half of the mountain shall be removed toward the north, and half of it towards the south. Here's the alleged Mount of Olives today. I found it fascinating. On one side of the mountain, there's like tombs, like people have been buried there. And I thought, wow, kind of interesting that they know the prophecies. A lot of these people that know the prophecies in that area, wanting their graves to be where the Most High's feet touch down. Pretty cool. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but it seems like it might be. And it reminded me of, Yeshua, when he was on the Mount of Olives. Guess what? It says, he said upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming and the end of the world? So this is Matthew 24. They're going to the same place that we're just now reading about in prophecy, going, hey, tell us about the end of the world. Well, right where you're sitting, I'm sure that would have been like, this is where his feet are going to touch down. Powerful stuff. Couldn't imagine sitting on the Mount of Olives with the Messiah. How blessed were they? And so more locations according to prophecies. The land shall be turned as a plain from Gibeah to Rimmon, south of Jerusalem, and it shall be lifted up and inhabited in her place from Benjamin's gate unto the place of the first gate. And so you have all of these different locations mentioned. And then let's see, let me skip down to Joel chapter 3. So shall ye know that I am the Lord your God dwelling in Zion. And again, I think that's where people connect that verse in Jubilees with that holy mountain being in the center of the navel of the earth. So I can understand that. I'm not mad at anybody who's read that and thought, hey, North Pole, there it is. If you think the center of the earth is the world, is what that's referring to. Okay. Now, see, Isaiah chapter 18, in that time shall presents be brought to the Lord of hosts from a people afflicted and peeled, and from a people great from henceforth and forever, a nation hoping and trodden down, which is in a part of a river of his land, to the place where is the name of the Lord of hosts, the Mount Zion. And so right here, Isaiah again, 66 later on says, to my holy mountain, Jerusalem, saith the Lord. So all these different locations, and you can look at a lot of these on maps once they're talking about. I like to see them on the older maps that they have, shows us where these locations are, and you can look at them on a world map. And on a world map, it really doesn't look that far from the North Pole. Everything looks very close on these little azimuthal equidistant maps, or this Gleason map right here. But you can see where the red arrow is pointing is the center of the dry land right there, in my opinion. There it is, kind of with a square around it. And so you can imagine all that dry land. That is a lot of dry land. And it almost attaches right there to Alaska. There's like there's a small little land bridge would be needed to make it across there from, I think, Russia, that is. All right, so more locations according to prophecy. Again, there's prophecy after prophecy about this event. It's an important event. It's one that Yeshua told us to preach about. Preach that gospel of the kingdom. And it says, and it shall come to pass that the fishers shall stand upon it from En-gedi even unto Engalam. They shall be a place to spread forth nets. Their fish shall be according to their kinds. And let's see if I can, I'm going to read the highlighted parts. Let's see. This shall be the border down there at the bottom. This shall be the border whereby ye shall inherit the land according to the 12 tribes of Israel. Joseph shall have 2 portions. Remember, Ephraim and Manasseh. And ye shall inherit it, one as well as another, concerning thee, which I lifted up mine hand to give it unto your fathers, and this land shall fall unto your inheritance, or unto you for your inheritance. So lots of really cool prophecies throughout Ezekiel. I highly recommend reading Ezekiel, Zechariah, all the prophets. I mean, just read the whole book while you're at it. There's so many different things that are so interconnected. This pattern of prophecies telling us the same thing over and over. And then Ezekiel 48, the next chapter, it says, it was round about 18,000 measures, and the name of the city from that day shall be Yahuwah is there. And so little markers, land markers where these things are allegedly talking about. I'm not a map expert, so I've just put them where the internet tells me these places are. I know you should never trust the internet. You guys are probably on me about that one. So doesn't seem like the North Pole based on those descriptions in prophecy. Jubilees does make it sound like Mount Zion, again, like I said, is in Jerusalem. Is in the North Pole, but I think that's just an understanding of what the term earth means as opposed to the world. And here's a verse about the evil one here. It says, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation. And look up that word congregation. It means appointed times. Not what I thought it meant. In the sides of the north. And then when you go to the Septuagint, it doesn't say the sides of the north. It says the lofty mountains towards the north. Kind of like Santa living up there in the North Pole. I will go up above the clouds. I will be like the Most High. So lofty mountains in the north. Talking about the adversary here. And then this is one in Zechariah. I read this actually a couple weeks ago when we were talking about good old Saint Nick. It says, flee, like Santa, flee from the land of the north, saith the Lord, for I will gather you from the 4 winds of heaven. So if he's bringing them to the north, I don't know why he's wanting them to flee from the north. And then he's going to gather them. I will gather you from the 4 winds of the heaven, saith the Lord to Zion. Deliver yourselves, ye that dwell the daughter of Babylon, For thus saith the Lord Almighty, after the glory has he sent me to the nations that spoiled you, for he that touches you is as one that touches the apple of his eye. For behold, I bring my hand upon them, and they shall be a spoil to them that serve them. And you shall know that the Lord Almighty has sent me. Rejoice and be glad, O daughter of Zion. For behold, I come, and I will dwell in the midst of thee, saith the Lord, and many nations shall flee for refuge to the Lord in that day. So fleeing to him in that day. And they shall be for a people to him. See, I lost my spot. And they shall be for a people to him, and they shall dwell in the midst of thee. And thou shalt know that the Lord Almighty has sent me to thee, and the Lord shall inherit Judah his portion in the holy, and he will yet choose Jerusalem. So let all flesh hear before the Lord, for he has risen up from his holy clouds. Those clouds of heaven that we hear about when Yeshua returns with the clouds of heaven. And so now, after looking at all that, let's look at verses that seem to indicate that the return has already happened. This is a big one. So looking at Matthew chapter 16 here, verily I say unto you, there be some standing here which shall not taste of death till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. This is a big one because he is not going to lie. He's going to tell them how it is, and he's telling them that some of them are still going to be alive when an event happens. And a lot of people see this and they think he's talking about the return. But what he's doing, he's talking to all of the disciples. One of them is going to die. Judas is there amongst the crowd. And so when he says there be some standing here which shall not taste death, he could have easily just said, hey, all of you except for Judas, you're going to be here when you witness him going into his Father's kingdom, when he was taken up in a cloud, entering or coming in his Father's kingdom, not returning with the kingdom, but going into it. Okay, so Judas was still alive whenever this happened in the book of Acts, chapter 1, verse 9, where it says, and when he, Yeshua, had spoken these things, while they beheld, he was taken up, and a cloud received him out of their sight. So just like he left, that cloud receiving him, the clouds of heaven, when he returns, it's the clouds of heaven he's returning with. And so some of them were alive when that event took place. And so that's what he was talking about right there, in my opinion. I'm going to preface that by saying that's my opinion. Okay, not his return, not returning to set up the millennial reign, but coming into or entering into his Father's kingdom. So I hope that makes sense. That's the way I see it. And again, here's another one. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. This is another common one. And my interpretation of that is he's talking about a generation that's going to experience a mixing of all these things, the sun and the moon going dark, all of those things. And he says this generation or that generation, like it says here in the Amplified Bible, I assure you and most solemnly say to you, this generation, the people living when these signs and events begin, will not pass away until all these things take place. So it's going to happen quickly. Once you start seeing certain signs, it's going to be fast. That generation that sees those things is going to still be there when it happens. Okay, that's my interpretation of what this is saying based on prophecy, based on all of those precursors to the little season in the millennial reign that we have yet to experience, based on prophecy. Okay, so all of the prophets that spoke about Yeshua coming, they also spoke about things that have to do with the upcoming millennial kingdom. And so it's very clear language, very prophetic. It's a repeated pattern. And it's just extremely, extremely cool to start seeing the entire picture. Uh-oh, power just went out in my office. Hold on, let me see if you guys, can y'all still hear me? Let me know. It says I still have internet. My lights are out. I'm in the dark. It always goes out when I'm going live. I don't know why it does that. So you guys can still hear me. All right, I will just finish in the darkness. Hopefully, I might tell my wife to turn the lights on, or flip the breaker. Always happens when I'm going live. All right. So the remnant here, let's read Zephaniah chapter 3. I like this one. It says, the remnant of Israel shall not do iniquity nor speak lies. So remember the things, guys. When I'm reading this, remember what it looked like after Yeshua left, all the things that went on, all the persecution, the creeds, the inquisitions, all of that. It says, the remnant of Israel shall not do iniquity. This is during that millennial kingdom. Nor speak lies, neither shall a deceitful tongue be found in their mouth, for they shall feed and lie down, and none shall make them afraid. Sing, O daughter Zion. Shout, O Israel. Be glad and rejoice with all the heart, O daughter of Jerusalem. Yahuwah hath taken away thy judgment. He hath cast out thine enemy, the king of Israel. Even Yahuwah is in the midst of thee. Thou shalt not see evil any more. In that day it shall be said to Jerusalem, fear thou not. And to Zion, let not thine hands be slack. Yahuwah thy Yah in the midst of thee is mighty. He will save. He will rejoice over thee with joy. It's our loving Father being joyous over us. He will rest in his love. He will joy over thee with singing. Cannot wait to hear that. I will gather them that are sorrowful for the solemn assembly, who are of thee, to whom the reproach of it was a burden. Behold, at that time I will undo all that afflict thee, and I will save her that halteth, and gather her that was driven out, and I will get them praise and fame in every land where they have been put to shame. So all you people right now that are being put to shame for your beliefs and your way of life, think about that. And at that time will I bring you again, even in the time that I gather you, this massive gathering. For I will make you a name and a praise among all people of the earth, when I turn back your captivity before your eyes, saith Yahuwah. Beautiful prophecy there, waiting for this to happen. And it brings me to 2 Timothy, where it says, keep away from godless babbling, for those who engage in it will only become more ungodly, and their teaching will eat away at people like gangrene. Hymenaeus and Philetus are among these. They have missed the mark as far as the truth is concerned by saying that our resurrection has already taken place. This was going on in their time, and they are overturning some people's faith. And I've seen this happen. I've heard people say, I was starting to keep the commandments and live a certain way, but I found out that we're in a little season and none of that stuff applies anymore. We just have to make sure we don't attack the North Pole when they tell us that, there's aliens up there. And so it does interesting things to people's faith. And it almost becomes like they get really zealous over it, but then they kind of feel lost. And it says, nevertheless, God's firm foundation stands stamped with these words, the Lord knows his own, and let everyone who claims he belongs to the Lord stand apart from wrongdoing. So that was 2 Timothy. And that was the end of the presentation. I'm going to see if I can get my lights turned on real quick. I will be right back. I will probably replay my little 2-minute intro while I get the lights turned on. So my apologies for that. Seems like these things trip again almost every time I've gone live now. So I will be back shortly. Here's a word from our sponsors.
Man doth not live by bread only, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of the Lord doth man live. Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth.
And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit, and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years, and cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that he must be loosed a little season. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus, and for the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands. And they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. But the rest of the dead lived not again until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy is he that hath part in the first resurrection. On such the second death hath no power, but they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. And they went up on the breadth of the earth, and compassed the camp of the saints about, and the beloved city. And fire came down from God out of heaven, and devoured them. And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are.
All right, I'm back. We got light again. So yeah, in the dark for a minute. Let there be light. So any questions you guys have about that? Again, anything you want to share, prophecies that prove me wrong on that or prove these prophets wrong, or however you want to look at it. I know this is controversial. I hate that everything now is a big controversy. When you believe one thing, the truth community is becoming so divided. And I think it's by design of these unclean spirits. They don't want us uniting in truth. And so you're seeing a lot of divisive topics, people getting angry. And I'm just blessed that we can study with people like you guys and some of you in here that are keeping people in the chat under control when they get angry. Yeah, no hate here. If you believe we're in the little season, I'm not angry. I do get upset when I see people with large followings pushing this narrative. And it really is. It's making people think we're somewhere that I don't believe we are, according to prophecy and what the Spirit's revealing to me about the biblical timeline. And I believe we are in significant times for that reason. A lot of the things we're seeing are for a reason, and a lot of them have to do with these prophecies being fulfilled. And so are we in the little season right now? I don't believe we are. And I'm basing that on what I'm seeing in prophecy, the words of the Messiah, the precursors, the words of the Most High, the things that are going to happen during that millennial reign. I don't see them happening at all. And so I think that, let me make this a little less exit full screen layout. I think that we are right there next to the 7th millennial day, about to have the enemy bound where there's no more deceptions. Right now we're in a world full of lies, and these lies have been going on for hundreds of years, like that globe model. It's been going on for 500 years, okay, or more than 500 years. And so these deceptions have taken a lot of time. And it's a little season with one purpose, and that's to get the people to attack the camp of the saints in the beloved city. And it's going to be after a period where there's been peace. There hasn't been nation rising against nation. Okay, right now we have nations rising against nations. He doesn't want the nations to rise against each other. When the enemy comes out from being bound 1,000 years, he wants the nations to get along. He wants them to be unified. Okay, a lot like that. You say, well, there's the United Nations. Yeah, there's that. There's the United Nations. It's going to be like that. It's going to be very similar. Okay, he's rehearsing this out. These infrastructures they're building right now will most likely play a part when it comes to the deceptions ahead. Like it says, after the flood, the sons of Noah are going out and finding land. What do they find? They find the wisdom of the fallen carved into stone. Okay, they had a reset. Everything was good. It's supposed to be peaceful, but here they are finding these writings, and now you have these unclean spirits going out and tormenting them. And we just read today, only 1/10 of them was left to remain on this earth. So we're only dealing with 1/10 of the unclean spirits that were actually out there. The other 9 parts were bound. Okay, so very, very fortunate that we don't have as many as we could. And you still see the damage they're doing in our lives right now. It's sad. A lot of people are being demonized and they're having all these issues, and it's the same things that have been going on throughout time. And so false teachings are going to be rampant. Lawlessness is going to be growing. And so we need to understand what that looks like. Iniquity, will abound. It says iniquity is essentially utter disregard for the law. And I found myself in that category a while back, not really hating being righteous, but not really knowing how we're supposed to live and being afraid to keep certain commandments. Like I was afraid to keep the Sabbath because I thought that if you start trying to keep the law, you're under some curse and it's going to be so bad. I didn't understand what the curses of the law were. I didn't understand when it said the curse of the law, what that meant. And certain things that were designed for us to be a blessing to us, we don't know what they are because we're scared. We're scared to go that direction because that what it calls a mystery of iniquity in 2 Thessalonians, it's a mystery of lawlessness. There's this lawlessness that's been going on. And so we're afraid of the Father's instructions. We're afraid of his ways and his laws. We think that we're going into some sort of bondage, but you start keeping his commandments and things start becoming a blessing. And it's not about you believing you're justified by your works. It's a blessing to have that rest and to have those times to reflect and dedicate, time to him. Take a break, step out of the rat race that we're in. We're in significant times. You guys, you see, there's a lot of things going on right now. We've got the Jewish people coming out of underground tunnels in New York. We've got earthquakes. We've got tsunamis. Well, so many different things. And it's not even the real New Year yet. We're actually the fake New Year that happened in January. We're about to have the real one. So we're just seeing the beginning of the craziness. I feel like it's going to ramp up and get a lot crazier, but definitely some crazy stuff going on in the news and around the world. But yeah, if you guys have any verses you want to share, like if you've done a study on this and you feel like, hey, we really are in the little season, you're not seeing this properly, and I want to get things straight, send us an email. Our email's in the description. But email us prophetic verses, email us prophecies, and pinpoint to how that would work. And because I've been studying this out, and the more I study it, the harder it is for me to consider the other option of us being actually in a little season. And again, it has to do with prophecy, not melted buildings or, the old technology they're hiding. Yes, they're hiding old technology. That doesn't mean it's Millennial Reign technology. The Millennial Reign prophecies don't say they're going to have technology that's just ridiculous. That it's technology, wisdom of the fallen technology. I'm sure that way back when they probably had the same things we have now that we think we're the first ones that have had the iPhones. Who knows what they had back in the day. They obviously had airships probably as early as the 1500s. When you look at those old maps, there's no way they made those maps by going around on ships. These things are like equidistant azimuthal maps from, right after Christopher Columbus allegedly discovered the land that was already inhabited. So lots of interesting things when you look at history. But when you look at the patterns that we're experiencing, a lot of them are repeated patterns we've seen throughout the Word. And so the journey to the Good Shepherds, that one is a good one. If you haven't seen that video, that shows you that prophetic journey to the Good Shepherds. Like Yeshua said, I am the Good Shepherd. And what's he doing? Leading us to that fountain of living water, which is the Most High, who's going to wipe away our tears during this millennial reign. It's going to be spectacular. And so my goal is to prepare people for the resurrection, the first resurrection. And that's what our goal should be, that gospel of the kingdom message that's being lost with all the false teachings. And like I said, when we were looking at some of the things that took place, if I can find those slides, during the time periods after Yeshua left, after his resurrection, and after he went up to enter into his Father's kingdom, a lot of things happened. That gospel message was lost. And my wife would tell me this. She's like, what is the gospel? Do you even know what it is? And I'd be like, I think I do. And we don't. We get so lost. These messages get lost. The reason the Messiah came is lost. All these things get lost with time when we don't love truth. And so loving truth is a big deal. Read 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. And you'll see what I'm talking about. I was reading the Complete Jewish Version today, CJB, the Complete Jewish Bible Version. because it doesn't make sense when I was reading the King James Version. It's like only he who now letteth will let, and you're like, what? Who? What? What does that mean? Well, you read that version and it makes a lot more sense. It's about that mystery of iniquity or that mystery of lawlessness and people not being lovers of truth. So lots of really cool things to study with this topic. This is just scratching the surface. I'll probably talk about this again since it's such a big topic. I've been feeling led to have word studies where we do this together, where we get on here and you guys share your Bible verses with us. You see the things that we're seeing. And again, we're not here teaching, like Yeshua says, we're all equal. Don't call me rabbi. Don't call me anything fancy. I'm one of you guys. We're all brothers and sisters. And so I appreciate you guys joining us on our journey so far. Some of you have been here since we were Flat Earth Brothers, and now we're just Founded Earth Brothers. And some of you remember us back in those old days, back in our teenage years. No, I'm just kidding. I'm old now. My oldest son, who's 25 today, he is the exact age I was when I met him. So 25. And I met him when he was 9. Okay, so he's a little different, my stepson. So it's they were like, dang, how long ago was that? I'm like 50 now. No, I'm close. I'm getting close. Still in my 40s. But yeah, Debbie down here saying, hope you have a principal's office free week. Yeah, I know. Being called to the principal's office a few times in my career, 3 to be exact. I always say third time's a charm. I don't believe in those charm things, but something significant. Who knows? I know you guys just pray for me on what this next chapter, because I'm contemplating, or I'm actually wanting, not contemplating. I'm wanting to step away from public teaching to focus on the homeschool online version of teaching, where I'm just teaching believers and just teaching the truth without any barriers, without somebody coming in and observing me. But I mean, I do know that like the state's probably going to be after us and try to shut everything down. But while it's still legal, teaching biblical truth to children, science, not ignoring the mainstream stuff. I want them to be able to take a test, a state standard test, and blow it out of the water. And that's why I'm using what we call creation standard, where we take the modern standards and we change them to be creation standards. And so that would be something that I feel is needed. There's a lot of people seeking truth, and it's hard to find it in this world, especially when you go the homeschool route. And not even just homeschool. Like, I want this to be for people of all ages. I've had people that are like, hey, I'm in my 60s or 70s, and I want to learn about creation some more. I would like to sign up. Feel free. I'm calling it more of a homeschool because it's going to the standards. But some of us didn't get the greatest education. I know me in school, I didn't pay attention. A lot of the stuff I'm learning now, it's brand new. Like, I teach science. I've been teaching it for almost 15 years. I learn something new every single year. I've learned stuff this year, and I've gone back. Instead of high school, now I'm in 7th grade teaching 7th graders, and I'm learning new stuff. I'm learning things that I wish I'd have learned in school. And so I'm wanting to do that full time, but that fear tries to kick in and say, hey, you step away from that income, that money, going back to retirement and all of that. And everybody has that goal of just being retired by, the age of 50 or 60. And I don't want worldly goals to stop me from doing something that's a blessing. So pray for me on that I will have fearlessness. And if that's what the Father wants me to do, I can do it. And if he wants me to stay where I'm at and do it part-time, I could do it that way. So whatever his goal is, I want it to be that way. I don't want to jump into something and burden the family because of my lofty goals. But at the same time, I want to be a blessing to his kingdom and his people and his children, and do things in a way that's going to ruffle some feathers with these unclean spirits not wanting this truth to get out. So you guys have any questions for us before we get off here? I don't want to last too long. It's been a little over an hour since we started, and I'm trying to make it to where I can do this more often, get out of our comfort zone, and definitely hang out with you guys more often, like once a week, where we're studying things out. This week could be the little season. Next week could be summarizing what we learned, looking at some of the things that you guys have shared with us, and going over this stuff together in these crazy last days. We need to be studying these things out. We need to be seeing what the newest deceptions are. There's going to be more. As soon as you cover one, another one pops up, it seems. And there's just so many divisive things. There's people being divided over everything, calendars, and you name it, there's a division. And so it's hard to even speak. If I say Yeshua, people get mad. And why don't you say Jesus? I say Jesus. People are mad. Why don't you say Yeshua? So I say the Messiah. Then they both get mad at me. Like, it's hard to please the truth community. So if you're somebody out there getting a lot of slander and hate from people when you say certain things or do certain things. Don't worry about it. It happens. Can't make everybody happy. Excuse me. Sorry, just ate dinner right before I started. We ate quite a bit. Wife's good cooking. Hello from Corpus Christi, Texas. Wow. Some more people from Texas. Mike and Nancy, I know you guys in the crowd, hopefully, ones that study with us. They're in Texas. People always looking for good fellowship. Start looking, start reaching out, start using apps like Kingdom in Context, the Fellowship Finder app, Fellowship Finder on the Sun and Moon and Clock app, the Dave Weiss's app. There's ways to find people to fellowship with. So, yeah, definitely a lot of things to gain from in-person fellowship. Trying to scroll down to the bottom of the comments. I just realized I'm reading comments from way back when. Dally Jacobson said, we homeschooled our children. Good way to go. It's a good way to go. My daughter, she's doing that with my wife. My wife is phenomenal with teaching her. She can read better than I could when I was in middle school, and she's only 6. She just like, if I have something up on my computer, she'll be reading it over my shoulder. And I'm like, man, we can't hide anything from her anymore. My wife's taught her how to read. She has her reading the Bible. She has her reading books, like books that I was literally like in 5th grade. I would have thought that's a big book. And here my daughter is reading it. Of course, she gets that from her mom. My wife is gifted. I was not gifted. I was actually not the gifted student in any of my classes. Much love from the Ozarks. We got somebody from the Ozarks. Wow. But yeah, good to see you guys. Vader Bear in the house. A wise man will hear. Someone said, he says, I vote for using the name above all names, Yahuwah. I agree. He has a name. And to think how old I was when I found out that our Father has a name. You know, we always hear that word, you know, talking about his name. Yeah, he has a name. Wow. I thought it was just God and Jesus. That was honestly my young understanding. And that's until, heck, I don't even know, 20. How old was I when I found out he had a name? I don't know. It's probably in my 20s. I was like, wait, there's a name there? I experienced his presence. I experienced his love and his mercy, but I didn't even know his name. He's so patient with all of us as we're learning these things out. We got somebody from Ontario, Canada, way up where it's cold. I wonder how cold it is. I was talking to some people when we went on vacation. They were in Florida and they were from Canada, and they're like, oh, it's really not that cold right now. I was like, what? How is that possible? I guess we hear Canada and we picture like snowstorms and, you know, polar bears, and it's really not like that at all. I mean, it is, but not the polar bear aspect, I'm sure. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us. I know I look like I'm half asleep. It's because I am. I have, it's like I struggle to sleep during the week. I get excited about studying things out and just get this energy at night. So I started listening to the audio Bible when I try to sleep. If you're having trouble sleeping, that used to be a good way for me. I used to put on the Bible app and I would pass right out. Now it's like it keeps me awake. I'm listening to it and I'm like, oh, wait, there's a prophecy. I need to go write that down. So, I mean, you can listen to so much word. If you're struggling with sleep, listen to it. And the good news is if you don't sleep, at least you've listened to the Bible for 4 hours straight. And it's a good way to learn. If you're going to be awake anyways, better not, you know, stay away from the internet. That's only going to get you down either false rabbit holes or into temptation. Just listen to the word. Faith comes by hearing. I think it's a good reason why I think it's good to do these studies, hearing the word, sharing the word. All right, look, we got Laylo TV, former student, somebody we've crossed paths with before, out there making videos, doing a good job raising a family. Blessed to see you. From Holy Land of Missouri. Shalom from the Holy Land of Missouri. I've been to Missouri. Memories. When I go to Missouri, I get fired up. That was where we had our NCAA tournament when I was competing in wrestling in college. We would go there every year. St. Louis, big arch, beautiful. I mean, that thing is cool, the way they made that arch. It's amazing. We got silver rainbow. I don't know what the purpose was. I think I do know the purpose. The gateways. It's like the gateway thing, but nice place. But it fires me up every time I go there. I think of the losses I had in wrestling my freshman year, where I just walked out of there like screaming. Rest well, brother. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, people see me. They're like, "Did you sleep?" No, I don't sleep very often. Last night I did. Stayed up late, but I still was able to sleep until about 11 today. So 4 a.m. to about 11. Quite a bit more than I normally get during the week. But yeah, Be kind and stay humble. Yeah, stay humble indeed. The greatest in the kingdom are those that are humble. That's what Yeshua says. And so it's good to understand what he means by that. Those that are humble. Those are like a small child. Small children are humble. They listen to their parents. They look up to their father. They look up to their mother. Usually, good children. So humble yourself like a small child. Know that you don't know everything. That's what children do. They're asking you questions. Like that's their question is why? Why? They say why all the time. Our job is to be humble like those small children. Ask questions. Ask our Father questions. If you have any confusion, ask him. He will disperse that confusion with his Holy Spirit way better than someone like me trying to clarify anything with my presentations that are all over the place. Holy Spirit can do it. Yeah. So good to see you guys. I know you guys have better things to do now that their study is over, or this part one of this study anyways. I'd like to come back and talk about it again. Going to be looking at some interesting things. This is one thing we're looking at. Are we in the little season? And there's other things going on. Anti-missionaries, that's what I'm looking at as well. The ones that are against the Messiah, against Yeshua or Jesus, they are against him outright. And my thing is, and my wife talks about this all the time, be patient with those people because of the prophecy about the two sticks coming back together. And I believe it's Zechariah. And so or is it Ezekiel? I'm trying to remember, I get those two confused, the names. But the two sticks coming back together. And so, the Jews are just a small part of the 12 tribes. And so these anti-missionaries, they don't want people believing in Yeshua. But I think in reality, it's the false version of the Messiah that they're really against. They don't really know the real Messiah. They see the false version that Rome has created, and they're against that. And I'm against the false version too. I want people to know the real version. I want people to know what he was really saying, how he's, who he was, and that the things he said were true. But things have been twisted so much since he left. And so definitely something to cover. I'll be talking about that. That may be our next hangout like this. But again, wanting to do this every single week if I can, if time allows. So pray for us again. And I thank you guys for all your prayer support, our patrons out there that support us and join us in our fellowship. It's a great blessing to us to have you guys to study with and support us. And so definitely a blessing. I used to stream those studies off air so I could share them with other people who can't afford to support us. But we got flagged. One of our discussions were talking about things, and somehow we got a strike on our backup channel talking about Enoch, the book of Enoch, of all things. So definitely a blessing to have you guys studying with us, all of you who are here now and who have been here for a while. We thank you guys for your support and your encouraging words and correcting us when we're wrong. We need that. And we're not perfect. Again, like I said, we are brothers and sisters with you. Don't call us rabbi or teacher or anything. I don't care how large our following ever gets. Don't ever put your trust in everything I say. And so, yeah, we do definitely, Debbie's right. Yeah, we definitely misbehave. We try to be serious during our studies, but yeah, sometimes we get a little goofy, a little off task, a little off topic, but it's fun. Our word studies are a lot of fun. There you go. I like that Tyler Porter's wisdom right here, or wisdom he's sharing from the word. Give me understanding, and I shall guard your Torah. Yea, I shall keep it with my whole heart. Make me to go in the path of your commandments, for therein do I delight. Book of Psalms. Long book, but it's worth the read. All right. Josh, where'd it go? Have you considered Zoom for your studies? Yeah, we upgraded our Zoom. Now we can have about 100 people. I should probably start using Zoom. That way we can record them and upload our studies that we do. Off air, I don't want to put all of our supporters, like out there. I'm sure they want some privacy. But for anybody who's interested, I'm going to share them that way. That's a good idea. Thanks for the suggestion. I should do that. Record them. And also Zoom has a filter. It'll make me look a lot better. Yeah, that'd be nice. Try to figure it all out. Hope it isn't too late. Yeah, trying to figure it all out. Yeah, we're all trying to figure it all out. We're all seeking, and it's for a reason. We're all being brought together. It's not too late, but we do need to have an urgency. Time is getting short, and that seems like the urgency. Even the prophets had this urgency when they were talking about the day of the Lord. Like it's going to come quickly. When this happens, once some stars start to fall, you're not gonna be able to go back. That's a dream I had at the beginning of this truth journey. Towards the beginning, I had a dream that the stars were falling from the sky, and I remember looking up, seeing these giant orbs just falling down, and I was thinking, what happens next? That was my first thought, was, where are we at in the Bible? Like, where are we at? And I woke up and I read, and it talks about the stars falling, and it's like, it's at the very end. And I'm like, I need to be ready. Like, I didn't even know what happened when the stars were starting to fall. Like, imagine, like, it's the days of Noah. People are going to be doing their everyday things when these events happen. So we got to be ready. We need to understand where we're at in time and study these things out. And so, yeah, it's definitely important that we understand things. But again, the Holy Spirit, people that are new and that are overwhelmed with all these topics, go to the Father on this, pray, go, ask him to show you things. He'll show you things that would take you years to understand. He showed me things when I was a new believer I didn't even understand. I hadn't looked into the creeds of Rome and the history about certain things and the Messiah's image. And he showed me the truth before I even did any investigation. Of course, you come back later and you're investigating and you find out, oh, he was telling me the truth with the Holy Spirit. Now I see this has been a big ongoing pattern for years. And so definitely good to do that. Here's Aaron Blood said, been around a long time since we were Flat Earth Bros. Yeah, long time ago. It doesn't seem that long ago, but it actually was 7+ years now that we've been doing this here. Been a while, but it's flown by. It's been the fastest part of my life for sure, the last 7 or 8 years. Yeah, someone said unlimited Zoom cost $140 a year. So yeah, that's something that unlimited Zoom, that's a good one. Yeah, I think we upgraded. I can't remember how much it cost, but we can have up to 100 people in our studies. Right now we have about 8 or 9, give or take. If you include me, my wife, my mother-in-law, yeah, there's like, I don't know, 10, 12, just depends on who all you count. But yeah, definitely a lot of fun. I've limited those studies and interactions to supporters for now, just because when I've let other people come in that aren't supporters, they can go different directions and try to stir things a different way, cause trouble. Not that our supporters wouldn't do that as well. Some of them are pretty rambunctious. I'm just kidding. We got some good ones. We've been blessed. We've been blessed with some humble ones. Someone said it takes some of us decades to wake up. Yeah, snooze button pushers. Yeah. We were asleep. I remember that feeling. I remember that prayer of saying, because I felt like I'm dead asleep. And I said, Father, just wake me up. Wake me up. I'm dead asleep. And boy, did he wake us up. All right. Well, love you guys. Hunter's here. There's Hunter. How's it going, brother? Love you and your testimony, man. Hunter. Shout out to Hunter. Use the link. Sorry, I'm reading comments, multitasking here. Maybe the farm pierced. Yeah, thank you for that. Number 6. Yeah, you guys are awesome. Love you guys. The Father loves you. I'll let you all get back to what you're doing. Try to get some much needed rest. I know I look like I just woke up. I didn't. I've been awake for a while, but you guys are a blessing. Again, I say this over and over. Thank you so much for being humble, being awesome, putting up with us, being patient with us, and giving us your support. It's very much needed in this time with the spiritual warfare ramping up like it is against truth seekers. In general, that spiritual warfare is real, and learning about it makes you understand why they're so adamant about being against us. So they're against the Most High. They want to be like him, and they want us to be away from his ways and going towards their ways, this mystery of iniquity. So love you guys. We will see you around real soon.